Sheherazade. In a far-off eastern lands where wondrous things never cease to happen, and kings have power over life and death, a great sultan called Shahryar once ruled over a wide empire. Many years before he had given his younger brother Shah the distant kingdom of Samarkand, and both brothers governed wisely and well and were loved by their people. Now, when 20 years had passed, Shahryar called his chief minister to him and said, I feel deep sorrow at not seeing my beloved brother for so long. Go to him with gifts from me, the richest you can find, and beg him to journey back with you so that we may meet again. I will, my lord, said the chief minister. Then he gathered a force of courtiers, horsemen, slaves, and attendants, and had camels laden with gifts of rich clothes and jewels, and the royal caravan set out on the long road to Samarkand. Shah Zaman received his brother's envoy with joy, and opening the letter carried by the chief minister, he gladly accepted the invitation to return with him. After 3 days of feasting and celebration with their guests, the royal party set off together. But as the sun went down, Shah Zaman said he must return quickly to Samarkand to fetch a special gift for his brother which he had forgotten. He rode at speed back to the city, and going into the palace unannounced, was horrified to find his queen embracing a slave in their private rooms. With a cry of rage, he drew his sword and killed them both on the spot. The shock and pain of what had happened stayed with him throughout the journey to his brother's court in the far east. His strength left him, and he grew sadder and paler with every step, so that chief minister had to let him rest frequently along the way. Shahryar greeted his brother with love and affection. However, he was troubled at seeing him so pale and weak, and with such sadness in his eyes, as they sat together to eat. The young king could barely bring himself to taste the delicious food prepared for them. Much as his older brother pressed him, though, Shah Zaman would not tell him the reason for his sorry state. Come hunting with me tomorrow, said Shahryar. A day's hard riding will entertain you, strengthen your spirits, and give you back your appetite. Shah Zaman refused, saying that he was not well enough for such sports. The next day, the Sultan rode off with his courtiers to hunt, while Shah Zaman remained in the palace, sitting at a window above an inner garden full of fountains and ponds, where red and golden fish swam. Brightly colored birds flew among the trees hung with fruit and flowers, yet none of these beautiful things helped him to find peace in his heart. Just then, a door opened, and Shahryar's wife appeared in the garden, surrounded by slaves and handmaidens. Settling down by a fountain, she called a handsome young slave to sit by her side and began laughing, playing, and embracing him. Meanwhile, the others danced to music and all, so enjoyed themselves that the hours passed delightfully until evening, and they went back into their quarters. On seeing this, Shahzaman thought, it seems that my brother is even more unfortunate than myself, as he is a far greater king than I am. Yet, in spite of all his power, his wife and queen allows herself to play with a slave as soon as he has gone from the palace. Then he began to take comfort from the day's events, saying to himself, from what I have seen, then it seems that women everywhere are not to be trusted, even by kings who are the most powerful in the world. So my misfortune is not so great after all, as every man has to endure the same. At this, his spirits rose, and his cheeks were already full of color by the time his brother returned from the hunt that night. They ate a full and hearty supper together. When Shahryar saw his brother so much better, he said, Thanks be to God. I see your health restored, and you are again the brother that I know. Tell me, I pray you, now you have your strength as before, what it was that brought you low? What kind of sickness took your energy from you? And what is it that helped you recover so completely? Shah Zaman was unwilling to speak, but at last he explained what had happened when he returned to Samarkand at the start of his journey and what he had seen there. Shahryar was filled with anger on his behalf and understood why his brother had dealt his wife and his slaves such a punishment. But I still do not see how your energy was restored so soon. What happened to cure you from your sickness? He insisted, and would not let his brother stay silent. So Shah Zaman told them what he had seen from the upper window while Sultan was out hunting, and how Shahryar's wife had played all day with a young slave in the company of her servants. Seeing this, he explained, and realizing your wife was no different from my own, I threw off all my sadness and was able to return to health and strength. Shahryar sprang to his feet with anger, swearing he would punish his wife, but first, he said, he must see for himself all that his brother had described. The following day, then, the two men announced they were setting out for the hunt and would be away till nightfall. Secretly and in disguise, they crept back to the palace and watched the garden from the upper window. Very soon the inner door opened and the queen appeared with her followers and straightway went to rest by the fountain, calling the young slave to sit with her and play as before. Shahryar's fury was great, and he was not satisfied until he had summoned his chief minister and had his wife charged and found guilty, then taken away and executed. Then he said to his brother, let us suffer again the pain of an unfaithful wife. For myself henceforth, when I marry, it will always be for one day and one night. When dawn comes, my bride will be taken and done to death. In this way I shall never be betrayed again. Shah Zaman returned to his own country, and meanwhile Shahryar commanded his chief minister to bring him a new bride so that he could marry her for a day and a night. The most beautiful girl was found and dressed richly and brought to the palace on horseback as a royal bride. But when the next day dawned, the king ordered the girl's head to be cut off. For 3 years, the sultan continued in this way, marrying each girl for a day and a night, and having his new bride executed at dawn. All the families in the land feared for their daughters, but the power of the sultan was too great to resist. Even the chief minister did not dare to disobey. Many young women fled far away to escape from their ruler. At last the time came from Shahryar ordered him yet again to find a new bride. But the chief minister could find none in the whole land. So he went home in sorrow and anxiety, not knowing what he could do except give one of his own two daughters, Sheherazade and Dunyasad. The older girl, Sheherazade, was not only extremely beautiful, but also clever and well read. She has studied poetry and philosophy and had her own library of books of legend, myth, and history, which she loved. Now, seeing her father so unhappy, she understood straight away what has to happen and told him not to worry for herself, would go to the Sultan as his bride. My child, he said, do you not realize what it means to marry the Sultan? I myself will be forced to take you to your own execution at dawn the following day. The girl insisted that all would be well and that he must trust her judgment. Now go and prepare the horses in procession, and I will make myself ready as a royal bride, she told him. First, going to be her sister, she said, Dunyasad, be ready to come to the palace later, for when it is nightfall I will send for you. Once you are with the Sultan and myself, you must sit near me and ask me to tell you a story before we sleep. Then she went to her room and had servants bathe and perfume her. Then they dressed her in the richest clothes. She decorated her hair with bright feathers and costly jewels and hung her ankles and wrists with fine gold chains. Finally, she wrapped a veil around her face. When she was ready, she rode to the palace with her father at her side. Shahryar was dismayed to see the chief minister bring his own daughter to him. Speaking privately, said, this cannot be, for tomorrow you will have to be your own child's executioner. The chief minister told him, however, that his daughter was determined to be the sultan's bride, and he could not persuade her otherwise. So Scheherazade went into the court, knelt before the sultan, and swore she would be faithful to him always. Shahryar took her by her hand and led her into the banquet which had been prepared. When nightfall came, Scheherazade went with the sultan into his apartments. There he took off her veil and was amazed by her beauty. After keeping him company for a while, she asked him if her beloved sister could join them, as she had not been able to say goodbye. As he was enjoying the girl's charms and conversation, Shahryar agreed that and sent a servant for her. Dunyasad came in and went as arranged to sit near her sister, and soon with the hour approaching for the royal couple to sleep, she began to say, "Dear sister, I pray you, tell us one of your wonderful stories which have always enchanted and delighted your family, so that the last hour of the day may pass agreeably." "If my lord the Sultan wishes it," replied Scheherazade. Shahryar could do nothing but agree, as at each moment he was falling more and more in love with her voice and her appearance. Scheherazade kissed the Sultan's hands and his feet and made him comfortable where he lay. She rested her head upon his breast and began to tell stories. First one, then another, tales of such wonder and enchantment that they forgot the passing of the minutes and the hours, never noticed the movements of the moon and the stars until the light of day shone again through the window. Then she stopped. "Must you stop now?" said Shahryar. "I must know how this tale ends. Then will my lord grant me my life for one day only, so that I may finish the story tonight?" "Indeed I will," said Shahryar, "and gladly." So it was that Scheherazade saved her life for one day, and then went on with further stories to save it again for one more day, then another, then another. For the Sultan was so charmed with her voice and with the magical fables, romances, fictions she told, so that he could never bring himself to end her life in the middle of a tale. Some of the wonderful stories that she told are gathered here, and later we shall see how Scheherazade's own story ended. How Scheherazade's story ended. As we have seen, Scheherazade was clever enough to have unfinished every story she told, to leave unfinished every story she told, so that the king would wish to hear how it ended the following day. And every morning the chief minister went to see the king, afraid for his daughter's life. But for 3 years she continued keeping the king entranced with her storytelling, so her master came to love her more and more as years went on, and they lived happily together in every way, and in that time she bore him 3 children. In the end, she came to him and said, "My lord and master, I have entertained you for 1,001 nights, and you have never tired of me or my stories. May I call my children here so that we can be together with them for a while? Then I would ask something of you." The king agreed, and the 3 little children were brought in to see their father and mother. And the king said, "What is it you ask of me?" Then Scheherazade said to the king, "Will you end my life as you have all those other brides, and will you make these children into orphans? I ask you to spare me as the mother of your children." "My dearest wife," said the king, "long ago I decided that I could never let you be parted from me. You will always be at my side and be my queen. May Allah protect you and my children forever." The next day he called the chief minister and gave him many gifts in exchange for the gift of his beautiful and clever daughter. Then he ordered a great feast to be held to celebrate his wedding to Scheherazade, who he knew would be a wonderful and wise companion as his sign for many years of his rule that lay ahead. The end.